in a flood. That farmer knows that it's going to flood. And that farmer has built his house 10 feet higher because 10 feet, up to 10 foot high water wave doesn't do anything to the farmer, doesn't hurt the valuables. And in fact, if anything, it replenishes the soil, it eliminates the need for chemical fertilizers, and in fact, you get bumper crops for the following 4-5 years after each one of these floods. But we do not allow those floods to happen anymore. Here's another picture of a village. Small compound, which is again on a high ground. The point is the people are in fact adapted to the flood pulses of the river. They know it. They expect it to happen. When it doesn't happen, their land goes to hell. And they're quite worried about it. But because we have built these levees, I mean, you cannot have a barrage in one place and have the river go elsewhere, right? We can't allow the river to do that. So what we do is we build levees along it to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. And every barrage, every infrastructure in Pakistan, for that matter, in the rest of the world, has a safe design capacity. For example, I was working in the Sinai barrage area, which has a safe design capacity of 175,000 cubic feet per second. That's the amount of water that barrage would safely let go through it. Turns out that every 3 or 4 years you get a flood wave coming in at 275 to 300,000 cubic feet per second. What do you do with that? Well, then there's a very specific procedure. Upstream of the barrage, the right bank of these levees is blown up by the Pakistan Army Corps of Engineers. It is blown up by the Pakistan Army Corps of Engineers because the irrigation department does not have explosives and it does not know how to handle explosives. So it is a decision that is made by the irrigation department that now that the safe design capacity is being exceeded, therefore the upstream right bank needs to be detonated and blown up. These levees are built to fairly high specifications. Actually, if there's one thing that the irrigation department in Pakistan does very, very well, it actually does a very good job of making very good levees. Those are pretty good levees, I promise you. They really are. I'd be the first one to critique them if they were not, but they really are. So to blow up a levee like that, the Army Corps of Engineers at the beginning of every flood season actually drills deep into those levees and prepares the ground. That is, when they're given orders by the local subdivision officer or the executive engineer or whatever, they can operate the breaching section. So that's how it is done. And that causes tremendous problems because many of these places used to be wetlands. Okay? What we have done is we have drained all the wetlands in the Indus, practically almost all of them. I mean, from southern Punjab onwards, almost the entire length of the Indus is within levees. So we do not allow any wetlands anymore. No wetlands essentially means that you are compromising on groundwater recharge. Groundwater recharge doesn't happen. Wetlands sequester carbon, but let's not worry about that for now, even though we should. And wetlands moderate flood pulses. But we don't understand wetlands. We don't deal with wetlands. We just eliminate wetlands because to us wetlands are these cesspools of mosquitoes and nasty stuff, and we just kind of eliminate it. And that is the problem. So a few points to ponder that I'd like to submit to you. So with this flood, what you had with this specific flood, let me go back a little bit. With this flood, this is a very strange sort of situation. What happened was that the monsoonal impact in Pakistan is typically up to the Potwara plateau. Up to Potwara, you get monsoonal winds which are coming from the Bay of Bengal. Relatively rarely, very rarely in fact, you would either get westerly disturbances in the western basin of the Indus, you almost get no monsoons. You probably get some westerly disturbances. So relatively lately, what we are observing in milder form is a low pressure system emerging on the western basin, western Indus basin, sucking up water, sucking up air straight out from the Arabian Sea. We used to get the tail end of the precipitation of the monsoons that were coming from the Bay of Bengal. In the past decade, about 2 or 3 times, we have had milder forms of actual direct monsoonal impact coming from the Arabian Sea, which used to happen in the past, used to happen every few decades. But just in the past decade, we've had it 2 or 3 times. This time around, a low pressure system essentially parked itself on top of northern Pakhtunkhwa, with the result that you had the sort of devastation that you did. So there's a climate change angle to it. I don't know if you can attribute this specific thing to climate change, but we should be mindful of that. few points to ponderate. Everybody was hugely critical of the government response to the floods. Pakistani government deserves criticism on many counts, but in this case we were being a little unfair, because I would argue that flood relief is a provincial subject. It's not a federal subject. And federal government can only intervene once it is invited by the provincial government to intervene. And when the federal government does intervene, the only institution that the federal government has to offer is the armed forces. I mean, unless you want the postal service to go out there and start doing flood relief, you know, have all their postal bags and run around and scoop people up in postal bags. Federal government only has the military. So when you say the military is doing a great job and the government is not, that's just absurd. I mean, that's just weird. I don't know how people get around with that, but I don't understand. Second thing is NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, because constitutionally disaster response is a provincial subject. There's not much it can do. In fact, NDMA doesn't even have a budget. It has one general sub and a couple of, I think the general sub is the major sub as well. Now there's an FC from PWD who works there. So, not really. There's a modern economy in Pakistan, in rural Pakistan. You can depend on, you can think of it, it will provide for the flood relief, but you can't really depend on it. You can stretch to limits. And lastly, everywhere in the world, disaster response is most effectively done at the local level. It has to be done at the local level. You have to have local infrastructure, local emergency response infrastructure. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, our democratic government has gotten rid of representative local governance infrastructure. And so, inevitably, when you do not have local knowledge, local infrastructure, inevitably you're trying to manage a disaster. In Punjab, for example, Punjab by itself has up to 100 million people. If it were a country by itself, it would be probably the 12th or the 13th largest country in the world. So when you say that the whole point of devolution or provincialism is that there is ready access to governance structures at the local level, well, 100 million people doesn't sound like a very local situation to me. So there's a bit of problem with that. So what to do on a conceptual bit? I'm sorry I'm going over. Can I have a couple of minutes? I suggest that we must contest, we must argue, we must stand up to our water managers and say that how can you construct this index, which is the basis of our culture, of a whole set of multiple values to the people, and solely a controllable hydrological resource. Engineers know how water behaves. Unfortunately, in all Pakistan, there are lots of engineers who know very well how water behaves in a concrete model. But they have absolutely no idea what water does and left to its own devices. And that's what you need to learn. You need to learn from water, treat it with a little bit of respect. I think you need to decenter economic production as a core value in system management. I think there are a whole set of other values that will be fruitfully incorporated in system management. I say recenter people's world of meaning and multiple values as the starting point. What do the people want? What do people think of it? What does it mean to the people? What difference does it make from one part to the other? It's a fascinating story, and there's so much the poorer for it for not knowing it. I would suggest to you, and there's many articles I can throw at you, there's a lot of work, and it's almost not spatial in geography, that greater equity of distribution of benefits of the system is going to translate into lower vulnerability to floods. Promise you. If you want me to walk you through the whole argument, I can, but then I'm running out of time. Most importantly, plan inwards from extremes rather than outwards from averages. Unfortunately, our fundamental paradigm is plan outward from averages. On a material thing, river needs room to flow. Give it some respect. Stop treating it like it's another drain that we can fix it up. You know, everybody says, oh, you know, we are Muslims and we are really concerned about, ethics and everything else. You know, when it comes to locking up women, everybody's a Muslim at the front of everything else. But when it comes to talking about a little bit of humility in the face of a natural system, a little bit of humility for a system that has been devised, none of those values are to be wrapped up in the religious parties. It's a remarkable thing as the Daanish says. So give it some room, open up some of the levees, not all of it, give it back some of the floodplain, restore some of the wetlands, which will moderate the flow. Have a bit of an adaptive sort of mode. Drainage, huge. I was reading yesterday, water is still standing in many parts. Why? Because once you let water, once you breach the section, water inside of the levee for months at times and get eaten up by mosquitoes and cannot have no wherewithal to go back and actually work with that. Integrate flood better into the system. Our top priority right now is electricity generation. No, sorry, top priority is irrigation, followed by electricity, and flood is the third. So actual on-the-spot decisions, flood managers cannot take. They are taken centrally, and they're typically taken in the interest of irrigation rather than in the interest of flood. So you need to incorporate. Maybe even create artificial floods. They do it in the Colorado. It's a good thing. Better warning system. We have 60-70% cell phone penetration. They can be very effectively used to convey flood warning and information. So I think it's something to do with it. And learn from people's adaptations. These are the last workshops that we do.
Thanks, Daanish. What I'm going to say is partly building on you, although it's a different dimension.